Hi, Christoph, Serious Land Capital, vacant land funding partner. Today I wanted to go over some additional automation and efficiencies we're trying to build out within our business and just trying in general to remove reactivity. So I think a lot of folks are familiar with I'm forgetting, what's the name of the Y Combinator founder? Something Graham, forgive me. But, he wrote about the Makerverse manager schedule, very famous blog post within like the last 20 years or so. And Maker schedule is more where you're not having any set time blocks on your calendar. And so you can effectively dive into whatever problem you're trying to solve without necessarily having boundaries, or at least letting you really get into a deep work state to solve things without interruptions. Whereas a manager schedule is more, 15-minute calls, 30-minute calls, top of the hour, mid-hour, etc. It's just blocked off to where you can knock off a lot of various tasks, but it's a lot of task switching involved and hard to get into a deep work standpoint. So, I mean, there's advantages to both, and depending whatever your role is in your business, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, you have to wear both hats more often than not. And probably most of us operate on a manager schedule to our detriment, I think, especially when it comes to business development and just working on the business itself. And so I know that's something I've talked about more routinely here. And so when we were having our fourth week of our Automate to Accelerate program with Callan, it was supposed to be an implementation week where we were using an AI prompt to figure out, okay, what are other areas of your business that could use additional automation, to where areas where you feel like you're explaining things more often than not. It's just more of a general distractor for getting the necessary work done that would free you up, or it could be a good candidate for some AI involvement. And I've actually felt, especially over the last couple months, like we've really taken a lot of steps forward to remove a lot of my critical decision making and explanation from the actual business. And a lot of this has been done over the last few weeks, where for a lot of emails, like I won't have to do first pass at those anymore. A lot of our SEO and GEO article prep, even my review time on that has decreased significantly since we built out better projects, and the copywriting is just way better. Some of the initial deal analysis that comes in, oftentimes I won't need to take a look at that. So I'm able to chunk my day a lot better to jump on the reactive things as necessary. But I don't feel like I need to be in the weeds quite as much. Usually the first day of the week, I mean, this was a Memorial Day week, so, Tuesday, everybody's kind of getting rolling. Usually that first day, it's like, okay, I want to set some balls in motion that first day, like figure out, okay, where are we at with all of these various deals? Okay, what do I need to arrange for us to get done within this week? And I know it's always a Hormozy principle I'm trying to get better at, is like, anything that you set for end of week to be done, why can't it be done at end of day? I try to embody that a lot more, especially for my own tasks, because I feel like that's probably the single biggest unlock that could propel us forward even more. But at the same time, there's just some things like that I just need to have inherent patience for. Like, it can't always just rush a closing to happen with liquidity coming back in to the business. That would just be impossible to do, with an end of day type setup. But, the things that I can control more, that's what I try to orient around. So like we've made a lot of progress from that standpoint to remove a lot of the reactivity from my end. And so what I was really orienting around are actually these podcasts, to where, it's daily, right? So sometimes I'll have a bit of a backlog that ideas I can pull, or just, different learnings that come up. I mean, you guys know, if you've listened to this for a while now, a lot of current topics, like something that we just went through during that day, it's a good frame for what I want to talk about. And I usually record these in like mid-afternoon, when there's some fresh content. But some of the days there's just a lot going on, and then I have to spend time thinking, okay, what do I need to talk about, especially when you're doing these 7 days a week. And I would like to get more of like batch recording, 3 or 4 at once. So then I can buy myself some time and structure my week a bit better. But I just didn't have the best system for that. And so now I'm trying to orient AI to assist with creating more of a content schedule based on all of the content that I'm producing during that week and past versions of content. What else can we, spin different flavors of this particular idea? And like I'm already utilizing the podcast transcripts for building out newsletters. So, I've built out an AI project to where, my voice is contained within this Claude project. And so I'm able to throw it podcast transcripts. Like for instance, last week, I did a few podcasts on that, Washington State deal that fell apart. And very fortunately, we didn't, move forward, and then threw that into a Claude project and was able to build out that content within the form of my newsletter, which is just way faster than just, building it from scratch in and of itself. We're using content, different people, some don't listen to the podcast, some don't read the newsletter, but, it's always helpful too, just to have different mediums for, people to even hear the same lesson twice at the same time. So some, might resonate a little bit differently, but I'm already using that more strategically, but, the podcast is more frequent, right? It's daily. So I need a better cadence of scheduling, and just so there's less, again, reactivity or like feeling stressed. What am I going to talk about today? And so initially, and Callan provided some direct feedback on that. So I hadn't been using Notebook LM quite as much recently. For those unfamiliar, that's Google's product where you can upload a ton of content into it. It doesn't directly connect to the internet. I mean, the AI software itself connects to the internet, but it doesn't source things from the web. So it's only in the content that you give it. But you can send it so much info, way more than Claude and ChatGPT. So I'm just having my team take all of my transcripts from the 150 podcasts that we've done, add that all into a Notebook LM, start summarizing, and then having it interview me and like figure out, okay, what topics have we covered before? What can or what areas may have resonated more. Actually, I'm kind of losing the thread here after getting off that training. Callan had some really good stuff, and now I'm going to have to go back and figure it out. But that was like some of the gist. Like, okay, definitely use Notebook LM, get all those transcripts in there, and then you can start piecing out what works better. But I was already thinking about that, but I also want to include all the content that I'm doing in like the Facebook lives and even like anonymized emails or lessons, or just like simple notes I might just throw into a various collective weekly project, and then it can just spit me out ideas. So then I can just get a 7-day schedule, ideally of podcasts, or even like a 3-day would be a better start than where I'm at the moment. So there's a couple ways to tackle this. I'll let you know once we settle this out. This will be early next week, once I have my team member working on this more over the weekend here. But, the fact that we're actually moving forward with this too, like, yeah, you gotta get the wheels turning to actually get this thing started. But once you start building these systems, like it just starts freeing up a lot more, because then, I can remove another reactive piece from the business, and some stuff you'll never be able to remove really, like title companies, anybody who's been in real estate for a little, like it's always the most last minute type of request. I'd say 90% of the time. And so it's just, okay, let me set the notary and arrange my afternoon to take care of this, task switching and so forth. Documents, how often is like, okay, we just prep the documents. You need to get these out within the next few hours, otherwise closing is going to be delayed. Like that's just how title companies work more often than not. So you have to allow for some slack in the system to account for things like that. But again, we're not always handling closes on a day-by-day basis. And ideally, you can batch those whenever possible. So that's a piece that's still going to be present here. But I feel a lot more confident with the lack of reactivity that I've built in, and my VA is just picking up so much more from the AI side, just really, really doing well with it, building his own projects and so forth. So I think his capability has increased a lot as well, and that's allowed me to now focus, on 1 or 2 other like key maker level tasks, especially from the land pricer side. I'm really gunning to get this thing launched, MVP version, within the next 3 weeks. And so my CTO and his developer working under him, like they have requests coming in. I need to knock out some of those tasks. And like those typically take more deep work for me to really think about, okay, what's the best way to strategize about this? And so if I can knock out one or two of those a day on top of managing the funding business, like we're in pretty good shape. Can always improve from there. It's like, man, should I be working even more? Like, I don't know. You have to listen to yourself internally on how much is enough, and when your brain is still in good enough shape to still push out more. But I've been so much more consistent with probably not having as much like full days on the weekend, but I've for much of this year been way better both Saturdays and Sundays to at least knocking out a couple deeper work sessions, even in the mornings, like a few solid hours. Even if I do that over the weekend, that's way better than I had been in previous years as an entrepreneur. And so then I can kind of take heart, okay, even if I'm not having perfect, like just super long hours during the week, I know that I'm getting some high quality work, catching up on some deeper work items, the important, not urgent tasks. Sometimes they're urgent, but they just had fallen into a backlog. It's another fire to put out that I can knock out over the weekend and still just keep churning along steady week after week. So that's sort of the cadence that I'm trying to build over and over. Again, no one cares, just win. Like that is the focus that we are having within our own team, getting better every single day. So hopefully all of this is helpful to you all as far as how we're structuring our processes and delegating a bit more. Always like having more of a maker schedule. The more I can do that, the more I feel like real progress is being made in the business. I suppose maker schedule would be great if we were just having like infinite closes just happening and money was just coming in. That would be tremendous. It's just unrealistic, especially in real estate and bigger transactions. But I would not mind that if that was the case. But until that ever happens, I'm trying to buy more time to knock out bigger, hairier projects on average, because even though I usually hate starting them, by the end of the day, I'm usually feeling more satisfied that I actually did something that mattered. So let that be your guide. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals. We're back tomorrow with that, May 29th, depending on when you're listening to this. And landpricer.ai for the simple and easiest way. Well, no, simple and most accurate way. Forgetting my own marketing lingo. Actually, Claude came up with some better phrasing or slogan here. I got to look at it again, but I really liked it when I was doing some AI work on land pricer branding earlier today. So I'll get back to you more on that. Anyway, subscribe and share. Looking forward to next time. Take care now. Bye.